Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, good day today. I actually talked with one of my probably people that posted on my videos from time to time, and his cousin. We chatted, so perhaps we'll start to form a local game group. We'll see how it goes. It's exploratory phase at this point. We discussed a lot of playstyle preferences, experiences, what have you. So far the meeting seems to have gone well. So we're going to see, talk logistics and what have you. So fingers crossed. We'll see how that happens or how that goes. There's no rest for the wicked. Fingers crossed, big time. We get to play All for One Regime Diablo League tomorrow night because I have to go back and maybe make some changes to my character sheet in terms of experience. Just haven't done that, so I might have to make a change here or there. Don't cry for me. It's all fun, but that should be a hoot. But I got to play with Robert the narrator last night. That was fun. We did that beta testing for his Peace RPG, and Jason, Dark Age Roleplay Games, joined me. Unfortunately, Robert's friend Nathan got stuck at work, so he couldn't play this time. So we kind of NPC'd his character. And Jason actually made a great recap video of the whole event. But it got me thinking. One of the things that happened in the game got me thinking about, I'm not eating my words, so to speak, but I'm looking at this from a different angle. And it was about interesting consequences. And I've said very recently in my, I don't say it's a critique of other games, but that one of the things I don't necessarily always look for is interesting consequences. Games that include those as part of their shtick or as part of their conceits. It's not always necessarily what I want from a game. However, I realize that's not entirely true. I do enjoy an interesting consequence here now and again. And so something happened last night. I'm not going to give you the full recap. If you want the full recap, you can watch Jason's game. But there's one point in the game where my character has stepped into some sort of trap, which essentially puts me in this area of null gravity. So I'm spinning around out of control. I'm really not that effective. I'm in combat with one other creature, and I can kind of swing around every single time and kind of give it a hit. And we get to the point where that's no longer an issue, but everybody else is kind of busy, so nobody's done anything to push me out of this null gravity region. In the meantime, we're in a bit of trouble, and so the only thing I can do at that particular point is to start chucking things at this main enemy we have at this point in time. And so I throw my sword, and then I go all Captain America and throw my shield, and then at this point, I'm running out of options. I'm looking at what do I actually have in this character sheet? I'm not going to throw my rations at him, although I have done this in the past, and I see I have a rope. And so the game has, without giving away Robert's, intellectual property, because he's not ready to kind of expose that yet, the game has sort of an internal, in-game currency. And, I even said, as I'm spending a point of this currency, I'm not really sure if this was intended for, but, can I, maybe use some in-game currency to say that my rope happens to be tied in a lasso because I always do that? And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I'm going to attempt to lasso this creature at this point as I'm spinning around wildly. And he gives me a heavy negative modifier, and I fail, of course. And that's great. I mean, it was funny, but it's at that point probably what this guy would have done. My character, I assume, was not, or I was playing, was not the brightest in the entire world. And everybody else was busy, so they're not able to give my character guidance. So as the game goes on, Robert didn't narrate this as a consequence, but I thought about it for a second, Well, what would happen? I'm spinning out of control. I'm holding an end of a rope. The rope has missed my target. It doesn't matter whether it's hit my target or not. What would happen? Well, I'd start to become entangled in this rope. So I found that kind of entertaining. So I start to narrate this, and unfortunately somebody else finally figures out I should pull this Titan out of this null gravity zone. So he pulls me out. I crash to the floor. I'm tied up in the rope. I narrate this myself. I don't, ask not Robert what happened. I just think at this point, this is kind of an interesting consequence, So, I guess sometimes I do like an interesting consequence, and my character was strong enough that I was able to do some, what amounts to a strength check, and he always gets a pretty good big score because he's this giant, 8-foot tall Titan, and I was able to untangle or burst through the ropes enough to become effective again. But I found that rather entertaining, even just to the point of narrating myself squirming on the floor. And it got me thinking of other times I played in games where it was a Pathfinder game. It's not really important what game it was, but this is years ago, my re-entry to the hobby, and I'm playing with friends, and they have a different play style than I do, or at least that particular grouping of people did. And there were times when I recall my character was made stupid. I had my intelligence drained by, I think it's a yellow musk creeper is the official monster that was doing that to me. And so my character wasn't particularly intelligent to begin with, wasn't stupid, but I start playing my character more stupid. I guess what I was doing at that particular point was narrating what was an interesting consequence. And I remember the game master and the other players say, "Oh no, you don't have to do that," and because they hadn't narrated it, we'll take care of it. But it's just kind of like a mechanical drain that will return over time. It's been a long time since I looked that particular monster up, but I remember that being kind of interesting. I think it's one of those things where if it kills you, you become a zombie, or and you're really stupid. But I remember being a little bit dismayed all those years ago because I found that to be an interesting consequence. I was role playing my character as being rather stupid at that point, more stupid than normal, and it got to the point, I don't think I was being incredibly irritating. Looking back on it, maybe, but I don't think so. I was role playing what that character would do at that point, making some silly decisions. And I remember the other players being a little bit irritated, like, no, you don't have to do that. Don't worry about it. It's just this mechanical thing. And that was disappointing to me because I guess that boiled down to being an interesting consequence. It was a temporary interesting consequence, just like being tied up in the rope. So maybe I do like an interesting consequence now and again. Or maybe I'm not going out and looking for them, but when there is some kind of consequence in game, like something mechanical has happened, and I've been informed, you've been informed that this is your situation now. You're spinning around with a rope in your hand. You've just had your intelligence sapped. I'm the kind of person that then likes to think, well, gee, what would that be like? What would happen next? Sometimes the consequence is rather unfortunate, but sometimes maybe it's both, but sometimes it's just kind of interesting. Sometimes it's novel. Sometimes it's a little bit entertaining. So at that point, I enjoyed narrating those interesting consequences as a player and as a game master. So what do you think about all that? So maybe I do like an interesting consequence now and again and didn't realize it. Or maybe it's the context in which this consequence occurs. Is it something that I'm creating because that's part of a in-game mechanic, and it's supposed to be that way, and it's supposed to maybe make the story more interesting and drive it forwards? Or is it something that just happened? I suppose it depends on what genre you're trying to emulate as well. But now I'm rambling and the video is going too long, so I'm going to end it here. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.